Hi, everybody. DUGROZ here with DUGROZ Reports. In April of this year, I took a rip trip to Albany, New York. I saw the graves of 3 different presidents. I had dinner with a friend. I saw a waterfall. I went to a presidential museum and did lots of other cool stuff and got in plenty of relaxation. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I paid for that using nothing but points, miles, and cash back, how I budgeted, and which specific programs I used. And then at the end, we'll go over just some of the fun stuff. Does this sort of thing sound interesting to you? If it does, please subscribe to this channel and please click the thumbs up button. Let's dive in. The specific dates that I took this rip trip were April 25th through 29th, 2025. That was a Friday through a Tuesday. And what is a rip trip, you might be asking yourself? Well, if you're new to the channel, let me introduce you. RIP is an acrostic that I use, and it stands for 3 things. R stands for rental, as in rental car. I stands for inn, I-N-N, like lodging, which is usually a hotel or Airbnb or something along those lines. And then P is for plane, obviously the airplane. So if you're taking a trip and you can cover the rental car, the lodging, and the airplane, you've covered the biggest things. Now, I originally set out to cover those 3 things. I have since morphed in my travel goals to cover 100% of my expenses, even the attractions and the meals. So I've added that in as well, although it hasn't made the acrostic. So Rip Trip is kind of morphed almost into these long weekend getaways of 3 to 5 days that I generally take twice per year. Let's go in order. R, rental car. My rental car was from Dollar Car Rental, and I got this at the Albany, New York airport. And it costs $189.41. Not bad for 4 nights, a portion of 5 days, under $200. I got this via AutoSlash. AutoSlash is a website where you can track a rental or set up a new rental. I would recommend it. And it's just like it sounds, autoslash.com. I don't have an affiliate or anything, but it is very helpful. Most of the time, I will choose a pay yourself later rate, but in this case, with just a few days to go, I did it directly through AutoSlash as a non-refundable rate, which was part of the reason why it was relatively low in price, and everything was fine. I'll put a picture here on the screen of me with the rental car. At some point, I pulled over to like an abandoned Rexall drug or something like that in a parking lot and just took a picture for posterity's sake. So I had 3 different kinds of lodging, 2 hotels and 1 was an Airbnb. The hotels were the bookend. So on the first night, I went to a Staybridge Suites in Albany and had a IHG free night certificate. And then the last night, I was at a Crown Plaza, also in Albany, and also had a free night certificate. 1 belonged to myself, 1 belonged to my wife. Now, these hotels, I don't remember the exact amounts, but the cash rate would have been between $140 and $170 a night. You might be thinking, but Doug, why would you use a free night certificate on such a lowly hotel under $200? Well, I kind of fell into a situation where it was use it or lose it. These both expired during the month of May, and between the time like beginning of the year and May, I had no other travel planned. So it was either use it or lose it. So I decided to use it because what's worse than using a free night certificate for a 140 hotel? Not using it at all. So I did use them. They were perfectly cromulent, especially the Crown Plaza. I like that better than the Staybridge Suites. The Staybridge Suites had a weird thing with the air conditioning where it wouldn't stay constant all night. Didn't love that. But everything else was totally fine. For the middle 2 nights, I used Airbnb. I stayed at a place called the Guest Suite in Accra, and that came to $499.15, all on Airbnb gift cards. If you haven't heard the story, back in 2021 or 2022, Chase was running a pay yourself back on Airbnb, which I figured out you could use for gift cards as well. At the time, I had a Sapphire Preferred, so I could pay myself back at 1.25 cents per point. And I thought, wow, this is great. I just come off a good experience at an Airbnb, so I bought $1,000 worth of gift cards. I have now used all of that up except for about $130. So since I had already budgeted for that, I paid for it with points, actually, using Chase points indirectly with pay yourself back. You can't do that trick anymore, but I still used up those existing almost $500 of Airbnb credit. So that's how I paid for that. Great little place, no regrets, perfectly cromulent Airbnb. And then for P, for plane, there was two different strategies. I flew Delta both times. On the way out, it was Des Moines to Albany with a layover in LaGuardia. I flew on Delta. My wife has an American Express Business Platinum card, and I wanted to trigger the airline incidental credit, which of course you can't do directly. But many people have explained, and I found it to be true, that if you pay partially with a Delta gift card and the remainder on the Business Platinum, as long as Delta's your chosen airline, that'll trigger the airline incidental credit. So I went out and bought a $66 Delta gift card through Fluz, or Fluz, however you say that. And then I couldn't get it to work for 2 or 3 days. So I got panicky and went out and bought a Walgreens gift card for $67. They did eventually work. Apparently, it just takes like 42 hours for Delta gift cards to activate after you buy them. So not counting the gift cards, the portion that went on my wife's Business Platinum was $130. That did trigger the airline incidental credit, thereby wiping that out. So that's how I got to Albany. As far as the return trip, it was still using the Business Platinum card for Player 2, but in a different manner. I used the Business Platinum portal to book that flight with a 35% rebate. So it was a $198.18 flight, got 35% points rebated. So on the net, it was 12,881 MR points. That comes to 1.53 cents per point. So not too bad. I will also mention that on the flight out to Albany, I paid for a seat upgrade, also triggering the airline incidental credit, $74.18. I was in basic economy, but I upgraded to Comfort Plus. And this was what I call the worst seat ever. So if you've ever flown on an Embraer jet, the little jets that lots of airlines fly, you'll know first class is 2 on one side and 1 on the other. And then there's a point where the aisle jogs and you have 4 seats across. I was in the front row and the row directly across from the aisle. Maybe I can put a picture on the screen so you can see what I mean. Not only did they not have a tray table, it was on like you had to pull out of your armrest. It wasn't in front of you because the first class seat ahead of me was too far away. So they had hard sides. I couldn't spread my legs apart, but just as bad, if not worse, people kept running into me, like bumping into my shoulder. Every single person who boarded the plane was like staring directly at me as I'm sitting in the on display seat. So I think it's like seat 5B or something like that. Don't pick that seat. But whether it was a good seat or not, I paid for the upgrade, and it was $74.18. And that also triggered the airline incidental credit. So I used the entirety of my wife's $200 Business Platinum airline incidental credit on this trip. When I do budgeting at the end, I'll show you how I took that off. So that's the RIP, the rental, the inn, and the plane. Let's hit a few highlights on the rest of my expenses. So you see here, I keep a spreadsheet of all my expenses on the trip, down to the penny. If I spend a penny on the trip, I record it. First category is dining. Of course, you have to eat out. And just a couple that I will point out here. There was a restaurant called the Ever Ready Diner in Hyde Park, New York. And I said, with Matt, that's referring to friend of the channel and fellow content creator, big time diehard Matt Clausen. I knew he lived in that general area, so we made arrangements, toured the FDR Museum together, and ate at the Ever Ready Diner. And it was a great meal, $34, put it on my US Bank Altitude Reserve. That was before we knew about all the nerfs coming on the Altitude Reserve. My favorite meal in terms of eating was at a place called Mr. D's. That's the restaurant inside of the Crown Plaza in Albany, and it had really good reviews. My breakfast was good. Supper was some sort of pasta and chicken dish. And then I had this brownie cookie thing with ice cream that was like, oh, Homer Simpson drooling noises intensify. Put that on my Aeroplan card. That was, even though I used a free night certificate, that was my card on file for incidentals. So got the meals, breakfast and supper the night before, charged them to the room, and then boom, I was able to pay myself back 1.25 Aeroplan points per dollar on that. I had previously transferred over from Chase, and if you know the tricks I do, you'll know I use, in the long run, that comes out to 1.625 cents per point. Snacks are important. I spent $16.72 on snacks. Most of them were just like vending machines, getting a Mountain Dew or something like that. Only bought gas twice. It was a very fuel efficient car. So those two put together came to $42.70. Had two miscellaneous items. One was a Dollar General in the town of Highland, and that's just to buy some over-the-counter prescription meds. Maybe I got a package of cookies or something. I don't remember all the details. And then I stopped at the FDR Museum along with Matt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and that was $15. I was hoping that would code as travel so I could pay myself back, but no such dice. Dollar General and the FDR Museum put together was a little over $34. Transportation is where I had most of my expenses. Obviously, we already went over the rental car. We had an airport shuttle. We had the Delta flights. We had the gift cards that I bought. One thing that was interesting was I got a parking ticket because there was a sign in Albany downtown. There was some sort of concert or something going on, so I could not find a parking garage. I had to do street parking, and it's the kind where like you just note which spot you're in, and there's a kiosk every 10 or so slots. You walk up and pay with that. So I paid the maximum to get me all the way to 5 o'clock. I thought the way the sign read is that it was after 5 o'clock parking was free, but they put the good stuff above the bad stuff. It was in non-chronological order. Maybe I have a picture here, maybe I don't. It was really weird, but I ended up having to pay a $30 fine for that, plus a $3.75 processing fee. So that was kind of a bummer. And then I had some tolls that I crossed. The way that works is it funnels through Dollar General. Then they send you, well, they don't really send you. They basically send you an email that says like you have to pay these. If you don't pay within 30 days, we'll pay them for you and then bill your credit card on file. Didn't want to do that. So one came well before the other ones. I paid for one of them with my US Bank Altitude Reserve, hoping would trigger real-time rewards. It did not. The other one I paid with the Aeroplan card that did trigger pay yourself back for whatever reason. So I was able to use that. Couple lifts, one to get to the Des Moines airport, one to get home from the Des Moines airport. The first one I put on my Chase Sapphire Reserve, and that triggered the $10 lift credit that the CSR gives you each month. The other one I put on my Altitude Reserve and wiped that out with real-time rewards. I did also have to include a $25 Airbnb gift card that I'd purchased. I had originally booked a different Airbnb that was more expensive, so I had to get this gift card to top up to have the correct amount was my thought process. But then I found out that Airbnb didn't have laundry machines. So I was unable to have a laundry sandwich in my trip, which is very important to do laundry in the middle of your trip. So I switched to a different Airbnb that had a washer and dryer, but was less expensive. That's the whole reason why I purchased an Airbnb gift card. But since I bought it, I can't put it in my family budget. I have to count it towards the trip. So there it is right there. When I do the totals and add everything on the trip together, it came to $948.93. And then with the rental car plus one or two other things, I was able to use real-time rewards on my Altitude Reserve to knock off $216. My Altitude Reserve at that point in the year still had some of its $325 dining credit and travel credit left. So, for example, I was able to trigger the US Bank Altitude Reserves credit at the McDonald's in Mike Tyson's hometown, Catskill, New York, which I learned from playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out as a kid, and other things. The dining credit came to $23 and change. The travel credit went entirely towards the rental car, $189 and change. So I used a good portion of that. As I mentioned earlier, I used the entirety of the airline incidental credit from my wife's business platinum card, $200 there. Paid myself back a total of $76 and change on the Aeroplan card. I had $9.57 of Fluzz credits that I was able to use from prior gift cards. So I went ahead and used that to make that Delta gift card a little cheaper. And that comes to a subtotal of $233.43. Now, $233 for a 4-day, part of 5-day weekend, that'd actually be pretty good. That'd be really good if I didn't know anything about points and miles. Say, hey, I went to Albany, New York, spent 2 days in an Airbnb, 2 nights in hotels, saw some sights, ate dinner with a friend, went to a waterfall, did some other stuff, rented a car, and it was only $233. People would be like, yeah, right, get real, liar. So that would be pretty cool, but I'm not satisfied with that. I've got to get it all the way down to zero. So I keep a separate travel savings account with Charles Schwab. I'm going to sell enough of my money market funds to cover that. And then I will write a check for $233.43 from my Charles Schwab travel savings account over to my family budget. And that'll bring the grand total to $0.00 on a net basis, a totally free rip trip. Okay, now to talk about the fun things that I did. As I mentioned, I saw the graves of 3 former presidents. First up was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which is on the grounds of the aforementioned FDR Museum and Homestead in Hyde Park, New York. Saw that with Matt Clausen. The second grave was Martin Van Buren, and he's buried in a rural cemetery, or relatively rural cemetery, in the town of Kinderhook, New York. And then the last one was Chester A. Arthur, who is buried at the Albany Rural Cemetery. It's called Rural Cemetery because probably 100 years ago it was out in the country, but now it's in town in Albany, New York. And that was actually arguably the most beautiful president's grave that I've ever seen in terms of just the setting. The first 2 were kind of rainy days, but it finally got sunny by the time I got to Chester A. Arthur's grave. Other interesting things that I did were I saw Catterskill Falls, which is a waterfall that's fairly nice in the area. Oh, I think it's west of Catskill, something like that. I also toured the New York State Capitol in Albany, and that was fun. One of my goals, very nerdy goals, is to see every state capitol in addition to every presidential grave. So let's see, is there anything else I want to highlight? I think that's everything that comes to mind. So thanks for hanging in there. And if you have questions, please put them down below. I'll try my best to answer all of them. And again, if you like videos like this, please click thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, consider becoming a channel member. It's only $3 a month. It's called a DUGROZ Diehard, and you get 50 or more members only videos. As always, may your spending be frugal and may your points be plenteous. Thanks.